Hi there. Today we're going to paint a bluebird in flight in watercolor. So I just put a little tiny lift on the bottom of this so it's tilted at a very small angle, and that'll just help the watercolor run. And let me just grab the colors that I use for this. You can kind of see a few of them on the right side. All right, well, I already threw them back in, but I know I have I think it's ultramarine blue and cerulean blue. And this is the ultramarine blue. So as you can see, I started with the head of the bluebird. And I would just suggest when you're going to paint really loose, it's really important that you have your structure or your skeleton or your foundation as pretty accurate, because that's what you're going to go off of. So it actually can even become part of the painting, maybe some of these lines that you can see through the paint. So but again, you don't want it to be too fussy. But if you are not sure about your drawing skills, you might want to try before you get to your watercolor paper on a sketch pad. Maybe just work out everything before you actually get to your paper for the final project. So this is just a watercolor block in a size 8x10, which I like. And the main thing here is I think the wings are a little tricky. And as you can see, to dilute the bottom, and I went back with a wet brush and just kind of further diluted the ends of the wings so that it's going to not be such a hard edge. But here I'm using a liner brush and dark paint to make harder edges for the beak and the feet of the bird. And you don't want to, I'm trying to avoid the blue that I just put down because I don't want a lot of the brown pooling into, you can see just a little touch, and that's okay. Sometimes those are nice effects, but if I let too much of it run in, it's going to ruin the head of the bird. So I'm just adding some water to my paints. And a lot of times with birds, even birds that have, like right here, this is kind of an exaggerated cool quinacridone red pink or some sort of cool red. And then it's, I think, a Venetian red. So you just want to make sure that it's not over the top with the really vibrant man-made colors, but at the same time, don't be afraid to play around and have some fun. And if it's getting a little too psychedelic looking, you can always go back and tone it down with another layer. This is already dried. I'm doing this kind of like not a time lapse, but there is time that has passed because as you can see, the bottom layer is dry now, and I've even changed my clothes. Voila, this is like the second day at this. And so I'm going back and working on the next layer, I guess you could say. I really like the way that you see some pigments do this more than others, but this blue I used, how it left those blossoms, I guess you could say, of pigment. And so I really did like this hot pink. It just has a real nice staining quality. So it's a little maybe over the top, so again, going back with the Venetian red to tone it down a little bit. As you can see in the second layer, I decided to extend his breast a little bit because I felt like it needed that. And the wings are darker near the top, and then they kind of as the feathers expand out, they're going to be they're lighter in color, and they're just more soft. soft edges especially, kind of blurring together. And I'm not quite ready to, it's almost too much blooming going on the head, so I'm going to add another layer. I think that's what I'm working on here, and it's, okay, no, I decided to go back and finish the beak. Probably a good move, because especially the beak and the eye, you need a really dry surface, because these are expressive parts of the bird that you don't want a lot of, you want to have a lot of control over that part of it, because so you, and no like happy accidents, because they're probably not going to be happy. They're probably going to be sad accidents with the eyes and the beak. As you can see, I have some drops of paint on the background, and those were accidental, but I'm going to add more because there's just too much empty dead space on this, and so I decided I like splatters because especially it just kind of tells you, oh yeah, this is watercolor, and sometimes it makes drips. And so this is the cerulean blue that I'm going over with a really light coat. The cerulean adds, kind of warms it up a little bit, and covers some of the, especially on the head, like I said, it was like a really exaggerated bloom of color. I mean, you can kind of see the line of it there. And here's where I go back with the cerulean blue and just kind of splatter a little bit. Adding a little more, like I said, filling in some of the dead empty white space on the painting, and kind of adds some movement, I think, to the wing, so he's not just like suspended in air too. Okay, now what's going on here? Yeah, the tail and the belly needs to dry. You know what happened? I'm sorry, but you missed this whole, me laying down this layer here. But I worked on the wings and the head again, and just kind of tied in the back, the head, and the wings, and a little bit of the tail. So what am I doing? I'm trying to show you the colors here. Sorry, I'm doing a voiceover now, and it's like 2 days later. So here's some of the colors. Ultramarine, like a Mars yellow, I think, maybe. The cerulean and orange. I don't even think I used that orange. I might have mixed a little bit at the belly. This is very important, and I use gouache for this because the watercolor white just doesn't show up as well. So you could, if you had to be like in one of those contests where it has to be strictly watercolor and you can't use any gouache, you could put a barrier or frisket down. Excuse me, I cut off there. I ran out of film, so here's the final product. But yeah, you can use frisket to actually leave that area white, and then you just peel the, it's kind of like rubber cement, and then you just peel that off, and then you have that white. That's another way to make the highlight in the eyes. But that's something you definitely have to think ahead of. So that's why I like to just use the gouache personally, since I'm not in some sort of strictly watercolor society. So yeah, so I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope to do more painting videos, watercolor, oil, acrylic, all coming up. So hope you're enjoying this week, and this is April 5th or 6th 2020, and a lot of us are still in this lockdown, so have fun painting and being creative.